This is CNN Student News. I'm Carl Azuz at the CNN Center. Welcome to the show. First up, it's been almost half a century since a storm this strong threatened southeastern China. Its name is Typhoon Meranti. It grew from the equivalent of a Category 1 hurricane to a Category 5 in just a day's time. It was labeled a super typhoon. At one point, Meranti had sustained wind speeds of 190 miles per hour. And after roaring across southern Taiwan early today, it was targeting China's mainland with tremendous winds and torrential rain. The storm weakened a bit after hitting Taiwan. It was the equivalent of a Category 4 hurricane then. But forecasters said it'd stay a typhoon or hurricane strength for at least 12 hours. And authorities in China deployed emergency response plans and warned sailors that waves as high as 42 feet could be expected in the South China Sea. The population density is greater in southeastern China, and the ground is relatively flat, so storm surges and inland flooding posed a greater threat as Meranti approached. From southern China to the southern hemisphere, just like Brazil made history hosting the region's first ever Olympic Games, it's now hosting the region's first ever Paralympics. They started on the 7th and run through this Sunday, and one of the U.S. competitors has a legacy of running track. But at age 20, he was diagnosed with a condition that hindered the muscle and nerves in his right leg. It was through faith, fitness, and a fierce drive to compete that he got back on the track, and we caught up with him before he traveled to Rio de Janeiro.
My name is Jared Wallace. I'm 26 years old, and I run track and field for the United States Paralympic team, specializing in the 100-meter and the 4x100-meter relay. Getting our kind of final training sessions in, leading into the Paralympic Games, so we're kind of finalizing little kinks and working on our block starts, working on power and explosiveness in the weight room, and making sure that my body's ready. Slept 12 hours 2 days ago, and I slept 8 last night. I've had a great season so far this season. I'm undefeated in the 100 meters, and really excited to get down to Rio and execute some good races. Paralympics kind of fell into my lap. I was a track runner my entire life. My mom was an All-American here at the University of Georgia in the 80s, and as a kid I grew up running and doing fun runs and 5Ks, and when I got into high school I got a lot more competitive with it and realized, hey, this is something maybe I could do at the college level. I ultimately ended up having a running injury that I needed to have surgery for, and that surgery we had complications. I spent 2.5 years, I had 10 reconstructive surgeries trying to save my leg. I wasn't really at a point where amputation was an option. It was like, no, we have to save my leg. I had reconstructive surgery after reconstructive surgery, and constantly being in pain and addicted to pain medication. Kind of got to a place where I realized, maybe amputation is a good option. And it was pretty quick recovery. It was 6 weeks in a day that I was walking pain-free on a prosthetic for the first time, and 12 weeks that I started running on my first running prostheses. I haven't found something that I can't do with a prosthetic that I couldn't do when I had 2 legs before. Paralympic sport is new. I lost my leg 6 years ago. I've been part of the Paralympic community for about 5 years. I've really fallen in love with track and field again. One of the things that if you really take time to sit down and watch the Paralympics and look at the stories behind the athletes, you will not only be inspired, but you really will be motivated to get up and do something. There really is no disability at the end of the day. Maybe someone's in a wheelchair and they do have a physical impairment, but their ability goes way beyond their disability. Sweet. I don't view myself as a disabled person. It was a long journey, mentally and physically, but I'm so blessed to be able to run again and use the prostheses to really push the barriers of ability.
Next story, it's the biggest business takeover so far this year. It involves 2 companies. Bayer, a massive German pharmaceutical company known partly for producing the drug aspirin, and Monsanto, a massive American agricultural biotechnology company. It's the world's biggest seller of seeds and producer of genetically modified crops. Bayer is planning to buy Monsanto for $66 billion. Why? For one thing, Bayer would benefit from Monsanto's technology in agriculture and seeds. It would broaden the German company's reach in the U.S. market, and it would reportedly make Bayer more competitive with its rivals who are merging with other companies themselves. This deal would create a huge combined company that would do business in pharmaceutical drugs, health products, and pesticides. But it's not certain if the deal will go through. Though the 2 companies have agreed to it, it must first be approved by regulators around the world who work to ensure that no one company has too much control over a specific market. To quote a USA Today article on self-driving cars, the road has recently developed potholes. The Apple technology company has reportedly shut down parts of its project to develop self-driving cars. Google and Tesla brand cars with self-driving technology have seen accidents, but companies are pressing forward in developing driverless vehicles in the hopes of making traveling safer. And we're about to show you how that's playing out on the road.
My hands are hovering on the wheel, my foot is hovering on the brake, but I am not doing anything. This is wild. Uber has completely disrupted the way we get from point A to point B. And here in Pittsburgh, they're about to revolutionize that experience. They're getting rid of the driver.
After 18 months of testing, Uber is allowing loyal customers in the Steel City to opt in to ordering one of a handful of self-driving cars. Why Pittsburgh?
We really feel that Pittsburgh driving is harder than most cities. Like, it's not a standard grid layout. Like, the traffic patterns in Pittsburgh are pretty aggressive, and we just have extreme weather conditions. If we can reason about all those different things in Pittsburgh, then we're feeling pretty confident we can take that learning to the next city.
During the pilot program, riders will be accompanied by a safety driver to assist the vehicle in tricky situations.
Are you my safety driver?
Sure am.
All right, you're gonna drive me safe, Philip?
I won't.
This baby's gonna drive us safe? Okay, good.
And someone sitting in shotgun to take notes along the way.
This feels completely normal, the whole thing, from calling it, sitting back here. Someone's usually in the driver's seat, they are right now. I would have no idea that this car was driving itself, other than it saying Uber self-driving.
It's all controlled by 20 cameras, 7 lasers, and 360-degree radar coverage. All that data looks like this, a map you can see in the back seat.
We're taking all that data and fusing it together to be like, this thing that we're seeing in space, that's a person. This thing that we're seeing in space is a bicyclist. The ultimate goal is for one of these cars to pull up by itself. You get in, you tell it where you want to go, and it brings you there safely with no problem.
How far away are we from that point right now?
I mean, that's going to take us years.
That's because the system isn't perfect yet, and in order for people to feel safe, it needs to be. According to research from the Boston Consulting Group, only 48% of Americans are willing to try a self-driving car. And it's not just passengers on the fence, it's also some Uber drivers.
I would personally never get into a driverless car. It's just terrifying. I mean, my phone breaks all the time. My GPS stops working. What if that car stops working?
There's a fear factor of riding a car that doesn't have a driver.
Would you be scared to get in one?
Absolutely.
Do you think that people's concerns are unfounded?
No, I'm definitely sympathetic to it, right? Like, you've definitely seen accidents involving other competitors running their vehicles. We take it extremely seriously. So we are working on this very hard to make sure this is a completely safe experience for everyone involved.
For now, Uber's sticking to Pittsburgh, with no immediate plans for expansion. But this is a big move for the long road ahead.
This is the future that people have been saying is going to happen for over 60 years at this point. And like, we've now reached the point that we can pull it off. Like, we fundamentally changed the world. Like, this is a story we'll tell our grandchildren, that we are the ones who did this.
Casey, Illinois is a small town with a lot of big things going for it. Take the Guinness World Record holder for largest rocking chair, 56.5 feet tall. The most prodigious pitchfork, 61 feet long. The greatest golf tee stands at more than 30 feet high. The massive est mailbox, 33 feet high. The wildest wind chimes, 49 feet high. And the craziest clogs, they weigh more than 1,500 pounds each and measure more than 11 feet, pun intended. It was all built by a man named Jim Bolin as a way to attract tourists to his town of Casey. So how could we pun on all of this? I'd say the chair is truly a giant's recliner. The golf tee makes sense in the largest club. The mailbox probably came with the biggest bill. The clogs are a tremendous feat. Building the wind chime was anything but a breeze. And that pitchfork has everyone saying, hey. I'm Carl Azuz. Thank you for making CNN Student News bigger than ever.